The one that you talked about recently with me that I was doing, but I didn't know that it had a term or a specific, was value proposition. So yeah, if you want to kind of define some of those and then some of the how-tos with those.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start at so the biggest overarching one is your vision, and you have a vision statement. And this is kind of the biggest bucket that everything goes into. And with your vision statement, this is really focused on tomorrow, right? This is it's inspirational, aspirational. It's what world you want to create. And well, we could go over an example. I'll go through all of them first, and I think it would be helpful. Then we'll do an example after. So that's a vision statement. And then a mission statement is, I like to say, today focused. So where a vision is tomorrow, mission is today focused. And it's really boiling down what you do, who you serve, how you serve them, and putting it into a concise and clear way that will basically, one, help you. It kind of is the core of your business that you come back to. But also a lot of times this is kind of you will a lot of times see people will have this on their website. Maybe they'll have a mission statement. It's not necessarily a slogan, but it's something like that. And then there is the value proposition. And a value proposition is where a mission and vision kind of they're not, I'm not saying they're philosophical, but they're a little bit more effervescent, where a value proposition is where you really boil it down to something that's literal, which is what people pay you to do. So what do people pay you to do is what you can ask yourself for a value proposition. And it's a lot of times I'll tell people, you can say, people pay me to blank, right? And it can be as simple as that. But it's really about, it's really about the actual product and how you offer that to people. So that one is a little bit, sometimes it can feel like it feels a little bit more clear to me sometimes than other ones, where you can get kind of caught up in okay, well, what's my purpose? And then is it is my mission my purpose? Or is it where your value proposition is literally what do people pay you to do? Does that make sense?
It does. I think I was probably thinking more about purpose too. So it's so interesting the way you're describing, vision is tomorrow, mission is today, value proposition is this, is what are people paying you to do? So yeah. Really interesting.
Yeah. And another way of saying it too is a value proposition is how you solve their problem, it's and that's usually in more marketing speak, it's about your customers, right? Where your vision's kind of about, it's about you, it's about the world, but your value proposition is completely customer or client facing, right? Or client focused, not facing, but it's completely focused on them. So there's that. And then ideal client is the person who needs or would benefit from your product or service. And that one is, I work with people sometimes who are they don't want to necessarily niche down, and you don't have to, right? You don't have to, but it is really helpful to get an idea of how to communicate with a specific person or a specific group of people, because you don't necessarily, when you try to be when you try to be for everyone, you sometimes just end up your ideal client, or the person you are really trying to speak to, doesn't feel heard or understood or seen. And it's not like you're trying to do that. And it's not like they feel that way. They're not like, wow, they don't understand me. It's more just that it just doesn't resonate with them. Or they're just like, I don't know how this would benefit me. Right. And so that's why it's really helpful to do exercises around Ideal Client. And also it really helps give you a direction with your content and your marketing, right? Because once you have these established, it allows you to begin to think of content that's going to be relevant for the person that you'd be serving, right? So, and it helps us from like not spending time creating content that doesn't help them or doesn't resonate with them, right? If like we want to provide resources, of course, but we also it takes time and energy and effort, and it's frustrating to put something out there that feels like you're just putting stuff out there and you're not getting anything back. This is where it can be helpful to kind of come back to, okay, what's my ideal client, and really going through that and figuring out what their problems are, like what they're working through, and how you can kind of meet them there.
Yeah, I always think of it as, who are you speaking to?
Yeah.
Is your ideal client. And I think that was one of the things I had in learning how to develop my own client base was not to try to be so broad. And it was one of the things that I would hear in a lot of the different people, things that I would read about marketing, branding, all these terms that I, as a small business owner, you learn on your own, and what do they actually mean? And so
and how do they look, right? How does it actually work? Like,
yeah, how's it
you don't want
actually?
to do exercises and then it doesn't actually, you don't ever use it, it's like,
Yeah, so it really is like, who am I speaking to? What do I want to say? What's the conversation? And so narrowing it to the people, and I liked how you said that at the very beginning. You were talking about how the people that you are speaking to, when you are just being authentic in that communication, the right people find the right people. There's a resonance that happens, the frequencies match, because we're talking about Reiki energy is going to come in and contribute to it. And so, how we even always say that the right teacher or the right student finds the right teacher finds the right student, client, practitioner. And so this communication is what you really want to hone in on, is what are you expressing that then is the resonant frequency for that person. And that ideal client puts it into a context like, oh, okay, that's what we mean.
Yeah, it can help with kind of anchoring it a little bit. And I think there's also this real balance of data, right? Because I kind of look at like intuition and like our perceptions, like that's information that we get as well. That's data as well. As I believe that's also data. And then we have like that we get from metrics, right? And that we get from like, real world metrics of like how, or web metrics, like how things are playing out. But by having a balance between those two, which is like our perceptions, and then like looking at our ideal client and, what do they do for fun? Or, like different things that, like psychographics, like where, what are their beliefs? What's their belief system? What's their culture? Things like that. By having a balance between those two, I think that that's where you really come up with this authentic way of communicating to someone in a way that it's not like just about you trying to like convince them to, work with you. It's more about having an actual relationship and creating that line of communication between like really knowing them from like a background of what they're going through or what their problem is, but also being open to the like intuitive data that you get. That's that a lot of times kind of feels like when you're like doing an intake in a Reiki session a little bit.